This is an example of creating an endnote or footnote citation for a newspaper article using the Chicago Manual of Style. Now, moving into creating an endnote or footnote citation for an historical newspaper article, we are now seeing on the screen a record from the ProQuest historical newspaper, the New York Times. And we still have all of the elements here on the screen that we need to use to create the CMS citation, minus the URL, which I will show you how to get to momentarily. So we have the author's name, John McCormick. We have the title of the article, Russian Stalling on Austria is Seen. And then we also have the name of the publication, the New York Times. Additionally, we need to include the name of the database or the collection this article is coming from, and in this case it is the New York Times 1923 to current file. And then we also need the date, which is June 3, 1947. And if we want to get to the URL that we're going to need to include in this, we just click on where it says abstract and details, and then when you get to that page you'll be able to scroll down and see the URL that you need to use to place in the citation. Again, you are not using the URL that is at the top of the screen in the URL window. Okay, you have to use specific URLs, and you can find the specific URL for this publication's article from the abstract and details section. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the citation for this article. Now, pulling all of this together and creating an endnote or footnote citation for an historical newspaper article, we start by, again, figuring out what note this is. So this is note 1 again. So we then indent, list the note number superscript, and then we begin the citation with the author of the article, in this case John McCormick, and then we list the title in quotation marks, Russian Stalling on Austria is Seen, Moscow believed to regret treaty group and to seek retreat from it now, and then a comma, and then the end quote, and then we have the publication name, in this case the New York Times, and it is in italics, and then we list the collection that this is coming from with respect to the database, and in this case it is the 1923 to current file of the New York Times historical newspaper, and then that is in parentheses, and then we have a comma, and then the date of the article, in this case June 3, 1947, and then a comma, and then the specific URL for this article that you found by going into the abstract and details section of the record, and then in parentheses you will have the accessed date. Okay, now this again is for an authenticated database tool that you're getting this material from. Now let's say you found an article from the New York Times from recent times or from current times. Well, you would not have to list many of the things here on the screen. You would not have to list, obviously, that it's coming from the 1923 to current file. You would not have to list the special URL. In the case of finding something, for instance, on the New York Times website, you would list the URL that's at the top of the screen. Okay, so it would be a much more abbreviated version of this citation. But you are going to be using the New York Times historical newspapers and other historical newspapers from ProQuest quite a bit, so it's good to understand this version of the newspaper article citation. Now, for a citation for a print newspaper article, basically you have everything except what's after 1947 in the digital version. Okay, and then again, you don't have the 1923 to current file. So they're very similar. All right, so this is creating an endnote or footnote citation for an historical newspaper. Please contact me if you have any questions at all about creating an endnote or footnote citation using the Chicago Manual of Style.